Hi, everybody. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to my delightful friend, Ben Riggs, to talk about all things writing, thinking, and maybe even touch on AI. You've got questions, we've got answers. Ben, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Ben and I first met on LinkedIn.
It's
Isn't that
true.
crazy? So it
It's
shows you
true.
the power of LinkedIn that you can make friends on LinkedIn, and we're actually really good friends. He sends me amazing pictures of his adorable daughter Ellis, and they really cheer me up, Ben. So don't stop.
I won't. I keep taking photos, so where that came from.
You've talked about how clear communication builds confidence. Can you shout that from the rooftops? How does that translate into digital behavior like page views, engagement, or conversions? What's the ROI on building confidence?
I mean, that's a good question. I think really what it comes down to is sort of what we've been talking about, that when someone is encountering a web page, for instance, that content needs to be preeminently readable and formatted and organized in a way that meets that prospective person where they're at. It needs to not be a brand flex. And so I think it's it's more than just, preference or style. I think you have to really be obsessed with, I know you've talked about this, like you have to be obsessed with the consumer, the prospective reader,
Obsessed.
obsessed with that, right? And I think you've got to really be willing to hang up your own proclivities toward what you think that person needs in that moment. So you've got to really get to understand what questions are they asking, when they show up to a web page. If it's something like a consumer health article and you're trying to really create the moment where they're going from, oh wow, they really knew what they were talking about, to clicking through for scheduling. I think just you've got to have, this is like painfully obvious, but we're still here in some ways in healthcare marketing. Like that moment needs to be clear, right? Like you need to
Here we
make sure
are.
the click through is appropriately placed so that like when they have that moment, they can have that moment, and
Well,
they're not
they're not gonna click if they don't feel confident about the
right.
next step. Like that's literally, I think what your point is so well taken because that's exactly right. They're constantly saying to you, like, make sure they follow through on the calls to action. Well, if you confuse them, they're not going to follow through because they don't feel confident about what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and 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 I think a lot of confidence is born out of, is that person having the experience in such a way where it's almost in their subconscious that they realize, oh, this is for me. I think we've all read the web pages. We all have edited those web pages where we're reading it, and the first third of what's there is just kind of brand gobbledygook, and it's there for brand continuity and for brand voice and all the other sort of things that we try to throw at it to lawyer it onto the page.
Yeah. I don't even
And
know why it's there.
yeah,
I don't think it's there for that reason. I think it's there
mm,
because we
well,
just
there.
haven't said no to our executives.
I think there's that. There's ego and lots of other fun things. But yeah, I think just and so
Can
if
we get
someone's
a t-shirt?
I would love it. You
And
beat
lots
me
of
to
other
it. You beat me by 0.2 seconds. I'll say team jackets, but team shirt. But yeah, just I think if you are busying someone with noise early on somewhere, it's not going to breed
turn off. Turn off.
confidence whatsoever.
I would love to tell you a story that I think illustrates exactly what you're saying so perfectly. So, unfortunately, I had to be with my mother in the hospital for 5 days. And I really wanted to see what the rooms were going to look like because I wanted to know, am I going to be able to stay over with her? Are we going to feel comfortable? And one of the pressing issues is that we keep kosher. And this particular hospital did not have a robust kosher menu. So I wanted a refrigerator in order to store our food. And I could not, I found like 3 pictures of the rooms, but like they did not have
Mm,
any words that described like what's available to the patients, what you can like expect when you stay over there overnight. It was just like, you can stay there overnight, but like no picture of the pull-out sofa. And I have to tell you, these were the nicest patient rooms I've ever been in my life.
mm,
Clearly, they had thought through every possible thing that a caretaker could need. There was a beautiful, there were like a pantry, there were like pantries all over the floor with refrigerators and with, places like to get ice and water and coffee. But I walked into there feeling very unconfident because I had no idea
mm,
I was equipped properly to take care of my mother the way that I wanted. And I
mm,
think that that's when we talk about clarity of communications, one of the things that I think, need to constantly tell our executives and our managers and the stakeholders over and over again is that our job is to paint the clearest picture possible of what the expectation and the patient experience is going to be.
yep.
Words, pictures, videos, I don't care. But whatever
Mm,
content we can use to do that, that's going to give them the confidence that they need. And obviously, I was very happy once I found everything there.
Right.
But those 7 hours and the weeks before, not knowing what it was going to look like and how it was going to be,
Mhm.
created anxiety that I didn't need.
If there are folks out there who are just maybe not connecting just yet, I think one more example could do it, and that's this kind of ubiquitous experience we're all having with recipes online. And it's right, no one's looking up
My
a recipe.
grandmother Celeste,
Oh, it's and I right, like we're storytellers. We're like, let's go story, but not
for crying out loud.
when I'm trying to make sure I'm helping with getting dinner prepped because my wife is helping get our kiddo down. Like the story, I'm not there for it. I'm
No,
sorry. And
no,
so it doesn't breed confidence. And I mean, 9.9 times out of 10, I'm not going to bother sifting through everything. I mean, everyone's had this experience. I don't have to explain it. You're going to go find the next recipe.
that's great.
And so I think that's another example for this. If and I think it's a matter too in that moment of the expectations I have didn't meet what the writer was anticipating for my expectations. They wanted to tell a story, and that's great, but in that moment, that's
Just
not.
AI tools are everywhere now. What writing tasks do you think AI should take off a healthcare marketer's plate? And what do you think should absolutely stay human? How are you using AI in your own process? And where has it surprised or disappointed?
Is it possible to say it's really surprised me in the ways it's disappointed me? It's also
That's a
surprised
good
me.
answer. That's the
Uh,
done.
yeah, and I stand by it. Yeah, working backward on things it shouldn't do. I mean, I would never look to it to help me write any sort of patient story, provider profile features, something that just requires the human touch and requires someone to think and report and do interviewing in a very empathetic way. And even just from a privacy standpoint, I think that there are good applications for certain AI products with distilling certain interviews, things like that. But when it comes to someone sharing their own story, it's just never, even if I were to have their permission to do it, I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing that because there is something about just even from a craft perspective, I think sifting through your notes again and sitting with an interview, you almost go through it as a brand new person the second time. So I'm not going to want to at least for a while bring in AI to help me with any
No.
part of that. But I think it really comes down to the stuff that it's designed to do, which is to help distill, summarize, and help me get a sense of what's already out there.
Yes.
I mean, AI is never going to write me something objectively new. AI is never going to have a grand idea for something that I'm often writing or I'm editing, consumer health content, web pages, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I think in that way, it can help healthcare marketers not not guess at what's out there. I think you can get a pretty clear picture, pretty quickly about if you're going to write on a certain topic, how most of healthcare is already written about it.
Yeah. Which angle they've already taken.
Right, exactly. So in that way, it can help you try to dodge the sea of sameness, but it can also help just with some preliminary research. I think as well. I still haven't. You've got more street cred here than I do, but just I've not yet seen it help me with personas quite as much as it's maybe helped other
No.
people.
This is the best story I tell about AI because I love it when people are like, but it is empathetic or it can, know the patient experience or blah, blah, blah. And I always, and obviously, I'm a writer. Like I care about writing. I care about thinking. I care about the shape that writing takes, but I'm not all here for the writing. Like I believe in lots of other kinds of content too. I mean, we started off with cave painting. So I don't
Right.
think that like we should say that, the only way to communicate is through writing. I mean, the Vatican just used smoke. So
Right.
there's all kinds of ways to communicate. I tell this story about when I was first a web writer, I was writing a radiation oncology section
Mm-hmm.
and I sat there for people's like appointments and I just sat in the waiting room. I would always do this and just watch what happened. And your first radiation oncology appointment, may you never find this out, is that they are going to spend a lot of time. It takes a very long time to figure out where the tumor is and how to avoid hurting healthy tissue by how they place the
Mm-hmm.
beams. And these appointments can take, 4 hours sometimes. And I watched a lot of people in the room get hungry. At that point, it wasn't called hangry, but now it is. It's been rebranded as hangry. And the cafeteria was very far away from this waiting room. So you couldn't really leave because they needed to keep calling you back in as they
Mm,
did the planning. And there was no vending machine nearby. So I wrote what to expect for your first appointment. And I just put bring a
mm,
snack, or if it's going to be during lunchtime, food, because there's no vending machine nearby, and the cafeteria is rather far away. And especially for patients undergoing cancer treatment, if they're not there with a
yeah.
friend or a relative, they're not going to walk down this really, really long hallway. And I went back in to like write like a research section for them or something. And they were like, that was the best thing you ever did, that you wrote
Mm,
that. And never, ever in a billion years. Okay, maybe in a billion years, it'll figure it out. But, and I'll put money down on that. It'll take a billion years.
it'll take a billion.
Ever put that into the content,
Mhm.
because it can't sit in the room. It can't watch the people, getting hangry. It can't recognize the length of the cafeteria. It can't put that into the cancer patient experience. And that's why I always say to people, don't expect it to do the job that you've been hired to do. It can
Mhm.
help you, but it cannot do the job
Right.
that you were hired to do. And that's very important to me, because in healthcare, we've made such great strides in being more empathetic to people. I don't want to see us lose that forward
Right.
momentum that we've had. And that
Yeah.
is a form of empathy, to tell somebody, bring a snack.
Yeah. No,
It just
I
is.
that's spot on. I wrote. I know we're talking about a lot about writing, and
Yeah.
rightfully so, at least for this convo. A few years ago, I wrote a consumer health piece. It was coming up on the holidays, and I wrote about essentially how to relate to your grief during the holidays, and talk to a great SME here, who clinical manager at our behavioral health med center. But the one thing, and she had a lot to offer, and she's got her own very approachable style of communicating it that, AI, had it been around in 22, 21, wouldn't have been able to do. But, if, ChatGPT had been around, it probably could have given me some of the applications that she offered, because she wasn't inventing the wheel, which she didn't have to. But there was that year we had gone through a lot, and my family, we had lost my wife's mom, followed quickly by a cousin, and just it was a tough year. And so, and I really couldn't unpack it in a short amount of time, which I'm not known for. Uh, anyway, but the way I wrote it, honestly, was so born out of my own experience that year, and sort of the questions I was asking, and the things I was sort of approaching around the holidays. And so when I interviewed the SME, it was like a lot of my questions that I developed were sort of selfishly shaped for what like I needed to. And so, I could have asked an LLM to maybe cook up some interview questions to help get the
Sure.
conversation started. But the ones that really made that article sing were the ones that were shaped by the experience of someone who had been going through grief. It just happened to be me at the time.
Absolutely.
And so I think, just to kind of continue your example
Yeah.
of the
I
role
mean,
of
I
empathy.
think I think when people lose people, very often people send them Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking.
Oh
And
yeah.
she talks about, losing her daughter and her husband in a very short period of time. And I
Mhm.
think when you read that book and you've recently gone through grief, you're reading it alongside somebody who gets exactly how you feel. And I
Exactly.
think there are
Yeah.
tons of experiences like that, reading about people who have similar mental health issues to you, or reading about working moms or working
Hmm.
dads, or, people struggling with all kinds of things. I know that, you see this on membership boards, like on infertility boards. I mean, people are constantly giving each other, like, encouragement and advice. I have a GI condition. I belong to a Facebook group. Very often I'll see a post from somebody and I'll just try to be super encouraging and be like, you will get through this. Somebody's going to figure it out and find you the right medical regimen and the right surgical intervention. And yeah, I think those things are so important, and I don't think we should even be aiming to program them into LLMs.
I completely agree. And then I'm just not sure it is, again, maybe in a billion years. I just don't know how it's possible, because these are such, nuanced human experiences that really the connection they create is really profound. And what's interesting about that article is it continues to be one of the most high performing
Course,
articles
of course, of course.
since.
Unfortunately, an evergreen topic,
Right.
people, right. Ben, where can people find you?
Oh gosh, in my office, but also,
Playing with Alice.
yeah, playing with my daughter, who's the best thing ever. I am on LinkedIn,
Yes,
and
he is.
pretty much exclusively LinkedIn these days. So
Yes.
come find
Don't
me
go
there.
anywhere else.
I won't. I probably won't, to be honest. It's been good for my sanity, but it's also created wonderful community like
Yes.
this right here.
To you, our wonderful viewers and audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got the answers that you needed. If you do have a burning question, please put it in the comment section, or you can certainly email me at ahava.leaptag@ahamediagroup.com. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for being here, Ben.
Thank you.